Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax, let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, our February episode. We're very lucky to have the Caitriona Forde, the cybersecurity guru in Australia and the greatest of educators. I'm Lyn Hawkins, the founder and national director of Business Women Australia, and I'm actually streaming from this beautiful place, Boorloo, Perth, which is the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And Caitriona, you're in Perth at the moment too, aren't you?
I am, yes. Perth has been my home for 13 years now. So what a beautiful place to be able to call home.
It is a beautiful place. And for our listeners, they will detect a little bit of an accent there.
Really? I don't have an accent anymore, Lyn. I'm an Aussie.
I bet when you go home, they call you the Aussie.
They do. I picked up some Aussie terms, but in my own head, I don't have an accent anymore, but I know I do.
I love it. It's my favourite accent. I do. We've got family from Ireland coming out for Easter, and I'm super excited. So,
well, 2 weeks ago, I will be in Ireland, so there you go.
Yeah, that's it. Well, in fact, we said pack your bathers, and our cousin said she's been doing a cold swim.
Oh, yeah.
So she's going to get a shock when she feels how warm the water is over here. So we're chatting today about cyber safety, and you really believe that it's a business essential, not just an IT issue. And you know, I say it without jest that you really are probably Australia's most prolific educator in cybersecurity education. You've got 20 years of experience in the IT industry, so you have come from that IT background. And of course, as a founder and director of now, how do we say your business?
Well, it was originally caIT, and when we came up with the business name, myself and a designer, I really struggled. Anybody in business will know this. It's one of those challenges at the start. What's the business name? And I couldn't think of anything. And he was like, well, you're passionate about cyber awareness and IT, and it happens to be the first 4 letters of your name. So caIT, cyber safe.
It's brilliant. I love it. It's caIT, and it's a great conversation starter as well. Really brought that attention to cybersecurity and the impact that it has on businesses. And it's grown from the time that you really started. It's really grown exponentially in terms of how important it is. It's on everyone's radar. I think you helped work with me last week when I was over in Melbourne, remotely having a minor meltdown because I thought we'd been hacked. Our website had gone down and I couldn't get into my emails, and it was just an unfortunate series of coincidences. But it sort of brought to light just how much fear, how you just feel sick when you think hacked or something's gone down and you might not be able to get it back in a hurry. You've been helping companies train their staff as a first line of defence against cyber criminals, and you are very passionate about this area. How did you get into the cybersecurity out of the IT space?
Yeah, well, like I was in IT for 20 years before I moved into cyber, and back then, I suppose, you know, I was an IT managed services company, you know, that's what I did. And you were the cybersecurity person. Back then, you didn't really realize that you were doing cybersecurity. It was just part of doing IT. But, you know, about probably 10 plus years ago, we started to see where cybersecurity started to become malicious and become a massive business risk. And especially when things like ransomware, you know, a cyber criminal will come in and encrypt all the files on a server and the business couldn't operate. And I remember the distinct incident with one of our clients here in Perth. They had 3 offices, 80 staff in real estate, and they got hacked. And I'll never forget the Wednesday that it happened. And as you say, that fear, that not unknown, what do we do? And back then, the decision was made not to pay the ransom, which was rightly so. The owner of the business didn't want to pay the ransom. I think from memory, it was like well over 100K the hackers were looking. And so we had to restore the whole system from backup. Back then, technology wasn't as advanced as it was now. And it took us 2 weeks. So we had 80 staff sitting for 2 weeks, not able to invoice, not able to sell houses, not able to do anything that a normal business would do in real estate. And to me, that was the first time I was like, this is huge. This is this different game now that we're in. And I suppose more and more when I seen these incidents and we analysed and investigated, it always came back to human error. And that particular incident, it was somebody that had clicked on a link on an email, that downloaded a virus. So this human element started to come in. And it's, I didn't intentionally go into education, but if I look back through my career, I've always been an educator. I've always, more than I would say a geek or an IT person, I've always loved communicating with people and helping them understand technology. Because you see the fear, especially in business owners, when they have no idea what we're talking about. It's a different language, and all they can see is dollar signs and how much money this is going to cost my business. So even in the IT MSP space, that's what I love to do, was help them understand the technical solution that they needed in their terms and how it would enhance their business and in some cases save money. So I suppose always that's what I've been, has been this educator. Decided to start my own business, and again, it was just one of those things that I just wanted to dip my toes in the water, didn't know really where I was going to go. That's the story of my life. I just try these things and see where they're going to go. And I was doing networking groups, and I was getting constantly asked to run workshops and education sessions around cyber for business owners. And one of these particular workshops that I was running, it was for a small business networking group. There was about 30 members of this group in Perth. We're all business owners, and at the time, this guy who owned a cybersecurity company here in Perth, very, very successful one, he was a guest. And I didn't know that he owned a cybersecurity business. But anyhow, we got chatting afterwards, and he's like, I think you would be fantastic in the education space. Have you ever considered it? And that was the start of it. I got an opportunity for a large critical infrastructure company, and that it just opened my eyes to how much I actually loved this and how good I was. When I started to get feedback that people were like, oh, that was really good. We learned. It's just feel that passion. So it wasn't intentional. I really did fall into it. But what a space to be in. And I witness it all the time with audiences, whether it's in a networking group or whether it's a workshop within a business, and you know when the penny has dropped with people, and you know that you've actually made them change the way that they think about cybersecurity and their own personal online security. It's the most rewarding job in the world.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I can see that passion, and I've seen you in action with your training. It really is engaging. You make it simple and easy to understand, and there's so much of what you bring to educating and raising awareness. And you completed your master's. I mean, you're a lifelong learner yourself, and here you're also doing your PhD. What are you going to do your PhD in?
Yes, I'm in the process of being signed off at the moment. So it's in the human factors in cyber. Those that are in the industry, it's something that I've witnessed over, my 5 years of being 5+ years in the cyber education space. Like, if you're a business or you're a professional that wants to learn how to do this, there's nowhere to upskill. There's a few courses in the US, but they don't teach it at university. There's no playbook. There's no way. So most cyber education professionals are self-taught. Or they've followed advice of a vendor. And yes, we're making impact, but there's a lot of things that we are getting extremely wrong. And for me, this is what I want to do, is I want to figure out how do we look at other industries like road safety and how they have transformed and where we are today compared to where we are 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. Same as work health and safety, the reforms that they've had to go through and getting people to operate and work safely at work. So how do we look at those industries and learn better for ourselves? And I believe that we're very much at the beginning of the cyber journey. If you look at the evolution around AI and how rapidly it's changing every day, there's something new with AI, and how does businesses keep up to speed with that? So for me, that's what it is. I want to really dedicate, I suppose, a portion of my life to really making a significant change in this industry. I get really frustrated when, you know, I hear businesses say, oh, we've had cyber education, but it was really boring and our staff didn't enjoy it and it didn't make impact. Or they've gone out and purchased a platform and all they do is flood their staff with more e-learning. And I know for a fact e-learning has its time and its place, but it doesn't change behaviours. It's there for a compliance reason, but most people don't change their behaviours from doing an e-learning module. So that's the reason for doing it. Also in the space, I spoke at a conference in Melbourne last year, and I've had a lot of people really chuckle at this and have reached out going, you're 100% right. I feel the cyber education and awareness space has got an identity crisis right now, because there's a whole load of people don't even know what to call themselves in this space. You know, are we awareness professionals? Are we educators? Are we human risk? Are we influencers? And so people even struggle with what is this space that we do. It's not necessarily training. Yes, we do sometimes train technical skill sets, but awareness is more about making people aware of what the problem is and influencing them so that they have a desire to change their behaviors and how they use technology. One of the things that I've used for a long time, and I know me and Tracy Cooper talk about this a lot, is the ADCAR change management process. And I believe that's the foundations of what we need to do in this space as well.
You're spot on, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that journey with you, as we did with your masters. As you learn so much, you share it with us along the way. So I can see that you will end up impacting on curriculum design as well in the university system. I can see that they will probably entice you to stay and keep. It's flabbergasting that there's no cyber professional kind of stream for this whole space.
No.
We're just not keeping up with it with technology in the education
industry as a whole. It's not a professional industry. You know, there's no regulations. Anybody can start a cybersecurity company, and you know, it's not the same as being a lawyer or an engineer. There's no professional body. So that as well, there's a lot of talk about that right now, here in Australia in particular. And I think it's something that we do need to bring into the industry to up level the skill set, because, you know, even my experience in IT, you know, you've people that have had years and years of experience, which are highly skilled, but then you've other people that just come into the industry and all of a sudden they're an expert, but they've nothing behind them to say that they're an expert. They're really good at sales and marketing, so therefore people trust them, and it's part of the issue that we have within the industry as well.
Yeah, it really it's going to be a tightening up, as it does with any industry that's kind of new. It's still very new in the scheme of business. Now, so let's share with our listeners, why do you believe that this cybersecurity education awareness should be a priority for all businesses, not just those large organisations with dedicated IT teams? Surely with technology now and everyone doing two-factor multiple factor
identification. Yeah, multi-factor.
I mean, most of us would have that in a small business. So, you know, why is it important for all businesses?
Because what we have witnessed, at least in the last 10 years, if not more, and it's becoming more and more prevalent as well, cyber criminals now know that the technology is at a very good standard. We have for the last 10 years really focused on putting things like multi-factor authentication, passwords, all these things in place. So they're no longer targeting the technology, they're targeting individuals. And if you look at most cyber incidents and you trace it back, at some point human error has played an element. And it's so true with every incident that I work with clients on or have witnessed. There is an element of human error. And again, technology is evolving at such a rapid pace. So how do we keep our staff up to date with the new techniques that these cyber criminals are using? And every day they're coming up with a new way to trick you. I get shocked myself when I see another new technique or another new method on how. One I've heard recently, and it was just the risk of AI. When you go into a meeting and the AI is transcribing what you're saying. Well, if that's not done in a secure way and a cyber criminal gets access to that, and you're in a meeting online that's confidential, but that could be breached. Another one that I've heard of recently was the cars now all have, most of them come with either an Apple or Google, where you can read your text messages. And if you don't know who that text message is from, you could be saying to your car, read this text message and click on this link. And if it's a malicious link, it's you're then downloading maybe something onto your phone. So there's all new ways that cyber criminals are targeting us. Deep fakes, which is fake video, that's become huge, absolutely huge. We first seen it last year where the Hong Kong company lost 25 million because they thought they're on a video call like Teams or Zoom with their execs, and the execs authorized a 25 million payment, and they didn't know. Voice cloning. So if you're not educating your staff on these techniques, then how did they spot them when it happens? And also, we work in such a fast-paced way that we're not really thinking about what we're doing. So that's how we're falling for these scams. So I believe it's now a necessity. And to me, it's sort of like a duty of care as well. Because I have seen in organizations when somebody has fallen for a scam or a threat or whatever and has allowed that cyber criminal into an organization, the impact that has as an individual, and that's, to me, that's a duty of care to help those people, and to me that's why it's super important. And if we look at it, if they say anywhere between 80 to 90% of cyber incidents is due to human error. Well, if we're not educating the human, then how do we prevent it and stop it? So like in cybersecurity, we call technology people process, and for far too long we've just focused on the technology and the process, and we have neglected the people. There's many reasons why the people side has been neglected. From a business risk perspective, it's very hard to measure behavior change, and many senior leaders want metrics. And if you work in a corporate, metrics is gold, and that's all we care about in corporate world. But how do you measure, and how do you measure that your education and your training is being of impact? Which that again is another challenge.
It is. It's that real issue, isn't it? Until shit hits a wall, you like go, well, it's a bit late now. We should have been putting more into educating.
Yeah.
And if they're well educated and the training's working, then there should be limited incidences. So
and it's also one of the things that I see as well. It's an awareness of what a risk could be. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I was running an education program for a company in Perth, and I was doing a training session with an engineering team, and highly talented engineers. And we were discussing about a project that they were in the middle of, and it was nothing to do with the training. This just come up because they knew I had an IT background, and we're talking about this technical project that they were working on. And in the conversation, they said, oh yeah, we're replacing a piece of equipment. It was a piece of networking equipment, and this is part of the project. And we're just, they're all in the bin over there. I'm like, what? You're just putting them in the bin? Okay. Do you understand that there is configuration details on those, that if somebody picked those up, took them home, they could be used to get into the network? And that's an education piece on its own. So one of the things that I love doing through my training it's identifying what we call shadow IT. So when people have a problem and they can't fix it, they can't get access to the IT, they go and find a solution for it themselves. So that might mean downloading a piece of software that the company doesn't want you to use, or that has risk to the company, or going and buying a piece of like a hard drive or something and plugging it in, not knowing that it could cause a risk. And these are the types of things I find out all the time when I'm running workshops within businesses, because they share with me, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this. So to me, the education is more than just the awareness piece. It's understanding what is going on within the business that maybe the IT or the cybersecurity team don't know about.
It's sort of raising for me the importance of having a bit of an audit too, on your practices, on your workplace practices, what people are doing, how they're accessing all the different devices, not just at work, but at home. Now that we've got hybrid workforces, it's just opened up a world of little windows that are open into the system.
Yeah, like today I've just heard on the news this morning that the Australian government has banned DeepSeek from government devices. Which I understand why they banned TikTok. Was it last year, the year before? I work with a lot of government agencies and can understand why this is happening. But for businesses, they probably have staff using DeepSeek and they don't even know that they're using it, or maybe ChatGPT or whatever AI tool that they may be using. And do they fully understand how to use it without risking any confidential information around the business and or the business clients? And to me, that's again, there's a massive issue. If you're not constantly staying up to date and knowing what's happening in this world, then you're putting yourself at risk and you don't even know it.
That's it, and if your team are keen to use these kinds of tools and software to make themselves more productive, it's about being on the front foot and having, the right software in place that's protected and paid for and licensed. And, it's massive. It's a massive issue. And it's just, you're really sitting in the hot seat there. So what advice would you have for business leaders who are starting to build this culture, what you call a culture of cyber awareness within their teams, and especially if they have limited resources?
Yeah, I see this quite a lot. The first thing that I would say, especially if it's a small business, but it doesn't really matter, I see it in larger corporates as well, is having a safe environment for people to speak up when they've made a mistake. Because that's what cyber criminals, that's one of the tactics that they use, is to make you feel embarrassed or shameful about, falling for this, whatever it is that they've done. So you need to make sure that your team feel comfortable coming and asking those questions. And I see this quite a lot with the shadow IT, team members that maybe their boss or their manager is really busy and they don't want to trouble their boss because they see how busy and how much they already have on their plate. So they try to figure it out themselves, and that might be why they go and download a piece of software, So be mindful about how can your staff communicate with you if they've made a mistake, and making them know that, no, you're not going to lose your job. And the sooner that you tell me, the sooner we can stop this. And it's one of the biggest things that I say to all businesses. You need to have that conversation. Then if you can, obviously, like an education program is going to be ideal, whether it's regular workshops, doing simulated phishing campaigns, so actually testing them. And like with phishing campaigns, I'm a big believer that this shouldn't be used as a stick. For me, when we run simulated phishing, is basically send out fake emails and see which staff members will click. And I'm a massive advocate that this is an education piece. We're showing you what the cyber criminals are sending out. And if you fall for it, that's okay, because they're designed to make you fall for it. But it's teaching you how not to fall for it again. Another big thing for senior leaders is upskilling yourself. Go to conferences, go to events, go to cybersecurity. I think the problem is a lot of business leaders think that it's too technical, or it's boring, or it's not for me. I want to highlight last year Cyber West Summit was in Perth, and one of our members, Mari Gooch, came along, and she will tell you, she thought, why am I coming to a cybersecurity summit? But she learned so much. And Cyber West, they run every year in Perth. If you're in Perth, I couldn't speak highly of it for non-IT business leaders. That's who this summit is targeted at. We have lots of cyber technical summits, but this is not a technical one. And Mari will tell you, like, she learned so much about cyber and opened her eyes to it. So if you want to dip your toes in the water and upskill yourself, a fantastic 2-day summit to come and learn. It's on around in May. So things like that. And then partner with people that know how to educate and do this properly. Be very, very cautious. There is a lot of cowboys out there. There's a lot of people that say that they're doing cyber education, but they don't have the experience in doing it. And I'm very mindful of that. I've seen a lot of companies where they've maybe partnered with a vendor. The vendor has flooded their staff with e-learning and has completely disengaged their staff where they don't want to hear anything more about cybersecurity. So just be mindful. But there's loads of free resources like this. Our government has web pages with lots of free content. There's loads of places where you can start if you don't have a budget. There's so much free resources. There's one called Cyber Wardens. It's an online free course run by, I think it's a government initiative. A really good introductory piece into cyber education and awareness. But there's loads of different events that you can send people to. But it's like everything. You need to, if you're a senior leader, business owner, you need to be learning this stuff, because this is probably one of the biggest risks to your business, and will continue to be in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It costs business an enormous amount of money every year. I mean, what's the worst case scenario that you've seen recently, that has really affected, an enterprise or a privately owned company?
Well, there's one that's been on the media in the last few weeks. It was the first ruling in WA of its kind across the world. A company had come to what you call business email compromise. So what had happened was the company director's mailbox had got hacked. And an invoice was sent out for 235,000. They had run a contract with Rio Tinto, so it was a Rio Tinto project, and through the contractor, a fake invoice was sent out. The company did suspect that it was there was maybe something fake, so they rang, but they couldn't get through to the person, and then they emailed to verify, and obviously the email had went to the cyber criminal. They received the email back, and they paid this invoice of $235,000. The court has now ruled that they didn't do enough due diligence, and they're still liable for that payment. So they're now down, nearly 500,000. So they've had to pay double for a piece of work, which it's huge. So as a business owner now, or anybody that deals with procurement or invoice processing, you need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. There is some really good services out there to help you, but you need to make sure that you have a process in place, because you're now liable for it. So that's huge. It's really changed how we do things. And I have had a lot of people across the world. I do a lot of work internationally, who has reached out going, wow, it really has set the precedent. And it's a difficult situation, because yes, on one side a company got hacked, so they obviously didn't have the proper controls in place to protect that mailbox. But on the other side, this invoice needs to be paid. I don't know the companies, but I would guarantee the relationship between the two now is probably severed. And it may result, most businesses paying a $235,000 invoice, depending on the size of your business, it could be enough to put you out of business. So that's one of the big ones. Another one that I personally dealt with, and thankfully it was what we call a near miss in the industry, but could have been huge. One of my clients that I'm working with, I've been working with them for over a year now, and we've been running an education program, but they're an ASX listed company, and they're in an industry that has had a massive downturn, and they've had to have massive redundancies. So I think they've had like 600 people made redundant within the last 6 months. So anybody that goes through that process knows it's a really horrible time for any business. But one of their very senior leaders, who was dealing with some of the redundancies, was targeted by what we would call a spear phishing campaign. So an email that was highly targeted to them. The email came company branded, and it said staff salary report. And they were in a very busy period. They were actually on a mine site, and they thought the email was legit. They opened the email. It said scan the QR code to open the report. They scanned the QR code, put in their username and password, and it wasn't. It was fake. It was a phishing email. Straight away, the IT system started flagging that the cyber criminals were trying to get in. And when we spoke to, the senior person, she had no idea that she'd done this. She suspected that she once, started getting phone calls, and she actually tried to hide it, that she'd made this mistake. Mm. And we had a chat with her about it.
You can totally understand, thinking, oh my gosh, I hope the system is strong enough to support it.
Yeah, and that's what she said. She said she said she was I had a day back to back with meetings, very difficult conversations. She had a 15-minute window to try and get through emails to clear her mailbox. So she said she was going at the speed of light, trying to get things done. And she said, it was only after the fact that she thought, something was weird about that. And then when she realized, she tried to hide it because she's a senior person within the business and didn't want to be seen to be making such a big mistake by giving your credentials and information that's very, very sensitive. And when we talked to her about it, it turned out really positive for the business, because me and her done a video interview about it, and we shared it with the business. And she shared how they caught her, why they caught her, why she hid it. But to me, it was a pivotal point within that organization as well, because it just showed that anybody within an organization can caught, even somebody senior like that. And again, when we talk about feeling safe to speak up, as she said, she should have felt safe, but she doesn't know why she reacted in the way she did. So this is why education and continuous education is so important. Thankfully, that business had the proper controls in place to stop. But if they hadn't, it was a 4-hour window before there could have been severe damage. And you imagine going through redundancies and then having a major cyber incident. It would have been enough to probably put their lights out. So I see things like this all the time. And as you shared at the very start, Lyn, when we started, that fear when it happens, and I see it all the time, especially with business owners who have fallen for it. The first thing that they always say is that something felt off, but they didn't listen to their intuition and their gut, and they continued on doing whatever they were doing because they were busy and they're just trying to get things off their plate. And we need to stop and really, this is the thing that we need to do, is listen to our intuition and our gut when we're using technology when it feels off.
Yeah, and they're so sophisticated. I mean, these guys, I've had a couple this week that have, I don't know what category they'd fall into, but, I have a Big Pond email, and I've been reading in the newspaper Big Pond's potentially, closing down, the webmail. And then I got an email saying, click on this link to agree to the new terms and conditions to, otherwise you're going to lose your Big Pond email.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was all branded correctly. And I'm like, oh, is this legitimate or not legitimate? And I was thinking, recently one of the banks sent me something that didn't look legitimate, and I rang them and they said, no, that was legitimate. And, so it's so confusing.
Yeah.
And I just decided just to delete it. And I thought I'll just have to go into my Big Pond account, and hopefully there's a message inside there. But sometimes these old legacy systems from even the big utility companies, they've got an old legacy system that can't give you an information inside it because it's on an old, an old programming language. It's classic. So it's really tough. And then I got a text message, from reportedly one of the kids saying, I've just dropped my phone in the toilet. Can you call me on this number?
Yeah.
And I thought, that's definitely not my kids, because they said, hi, Dad.
Yeah.
And
They throw the giveaway.
and it was just after I'd clicked on plumbing, online plumbing order form. So obviously their system might be compromised because that's the only way. It was so quick afterwards.
Yeah.
So I might have,
Yeah, that's like, I have a friend, she started a new job recently, and she said literally 2 days after she started a job, now she knows the CEO, that's how she ended up getting, or got the job, that she was headhunted. And 2 days after, she got an email from the CEO saying, hey, I need you to go out and buy gift cards, we're gonna treat the team. And she's like, if she didn't had a personal relationship with the CEO, she probably would have headed out and bought the gift cards. But she texted her going, what kind of gift cards do you want?
yeah.
So they do, like, they look at LinkedIn and they look at places like that to find out what's going on and target you that way. One of the saddest ones that I've heard in the last while, it was an individual. Actually, I run these things called scams and scones, workshops for retirees. One of the most enjoyable things that I get to do, but one of the saddest things that I get to do as well. Last year, it was just at the end of November, we ran one for the city of Joondalup, and this lady at the end came up to me, and you knew she was pretty senior, but she said to me, I'm 83 years of age, and she said, that scam that you spoke about, and it was a remote desktop scam where they get access to your computer. She said, I fell for that 12 months ago, and they got onto my computer and they took me and my husband's all our life savings. And she says, we have not a penny left. And she said, to make matters worse, she said, now my marriage is basically suffering. He won't hardly speak to me. And at 83, I left, and I have not stopped thinking about her since. Working all her life, she said they had a nice nest egg built up, and like that, it's gone to a cyber criminal, to somebody who doesn't give a shit. And it makes me so angry, and it's one of the reasons why I do this, because those are the people that are impacted, and you can imagine, it would put marital stress. It's one of the things that I do see a lot, especially with small businesses that are a man and wife team. If one of them do, it causes marital issues as well. And I've seen it a number of times, and that's the side that people don't think about. It's also, if you, a business email compromise and you pay a fake invoice, the relationship with that client then, and it may be a business that you have worked with for years, or you've had to really struggle to try and get into a certain industry. I remember a small business, they were trying to get into the mining industry for a long time, a number of years ago, and they paid a fake invoice, and it destroyed the relationship with this client that they've been trying to win for years. So that's the side that most people don't see. I think most people just see the large corporates and them losing money and thinking, obviously they have plenty of money, they can deal with it. But they don't see the small businesses or the individual, that it changes your life. That lady, how do you recover from that? As she said, they're now living on a basic pension. It's just devastating.
It's just horrific, isn't it? I mean, it's when it's not just the business impact, it's the human impact, the relationship impacts, then the self-worth, all those things really at the end of the day that are the most important things. And Kate, you've certainly raised our awareness today and opened our eyes to how important this is. Keep up this incredible work that you're doing. I'm sure that there will be listeners. We're streaming live across Facebook, across LinkedIn, YouTube. We're on catch up for listeners on Spotify, on iTunes, and we host this on our website. So people who've tuned in or missed it, please listen. This is really important. And how will they get in contact with you, Caitriona, if they want to put some training in place and increase their sort of awareness within their organisation to protect themselves?
Yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I also have a booking link on LinkedIn. So anybody that wants a 30-minute chat, then you know me. I love to chat to anybody. So if you just want to have a quick chat, or use the link, book in a 30-minute chat with me, that's and even if you don't have the budget and you just want advice on how to do something, something's better than nothing. And that's why, like, I've built a network around me now in this space of people that I trust, that can come in and just run a 1-hour workshop at a decent rate. So yeah, anybody, like, that's the easiest way to contact me because LinkedIn's more active. To be honest, my emails are so noisy. Stuff gets lost all the time. I'm sure everybody's the same. So if you send me a LinkedIn message or book in a meeting with me, yeah, I'll have a chat with you.
Fantastic. And of course, Caitriona's details are on the Businesswomen Australia directory as well. So on LinkedIn, you'll find her, set up a meeting, get aware, get your team aware, and don't make 2025 the year that you were going to do something. Just get on and do it. So thank you so much, Caitriona, for being on the show. We'll have you back again, I'm sure. We love anytime. We always learn something new. And the training that you've done with our members have been fantastic last year. We'll have to get you back into doing another webinar. We haven't scheduled one for this year, have we?
No, we haven't. The start of this year is pretty busy for me. There's a trip to Ireland, but I also have a few conferences over East that I'm speaking at. And I've actually won some work with an international bank who I'm doing some executive training for them as well. So, but yep, I love Businesswomen Australia. If you're not a member, you need to be a member. I say this to everybody. I think it must be 5 or 6 years at least now, Lynn, that I'm a member, and it's such an awesome family. That's the way I describe it. So if you're not a member, hook them up because you'll not regret it.
Yeah, that's it. Anyone who's listening who'd like to join, reach out to me, lyn@businesswomenaustralia.com.au. And I would love to have a chat to you about how to get involved. Doesn't matter what state you're in, what industry, what sector, the magic is in the mix. So thanks a lot for having spending the time with us today in your busy schedule. We really appreciate it, Kate.
Always love it, Lynn.
See you later.
See ya.
You have been listening to the Businesswomen Australia podcast show. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights to empower you on your journey. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to stay updated in our latest episodes. And if you're not already a member of Businesswomen Australia, what are you waiting for? Head to our website today and join so that you can connect with a thriving community of inspiring women across Australia. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.